Economies of scale. An economy of scale is the advantage an organisation gets when it increases in size. In this tutorial we're going to look at the basic idea of an economy of scale and focus mainly on what one is and look at the most obvious type of economy of scale, which is normally called a purchasing economy of scale. Let's start with a simple example, looking at what a typical business may face in its day-to-day operations. I sell pots of honey from my warehouse. Now all my orders are sent direct to the customer, and many of my customers will order through my website. Now I sell each pot of honey for £5 to the customer, and it costs me £2 to make each pot of honey. That means I get a gross profit of £3 per honey pot, and it also gives me a gross profit margin of 60%. So I'm doing quite well so far. Now every time I sell just one pot of honey, or I process one order, so one customer comes along to me, I have to follow the same process. This is what I do with my staff. I make them print off and process the order. Then one of my bees has to go out and pick the order. Then another bee has to come along and check the order's correct. Then we have to package the order. Then we have to put a little brochure in saying to come back to us with a little discount offer in there. And then finally I send it out with the courier to deliver to my customers. So quite a time-consuming process there. So every time I sell just one honey pot with each order, we have to follow that process. And as you can see, it's time-consuming and it requires quite a lot of materials. Think about the materials such as the labour cost to actually process the order, and also the packaging costs and the time that's taken in there. So this is where an economy of scale comes in. Because if we want to increase my profits, I've got to do probably one of the following things. I could increase my selling price. However, think about the evaluative side here. If I increase my selling price, I may reduce my sales. My honey might be price elastic because they might go to competitors and choose their honey instead of my honey. I could increase my marketing. The problem with that is that then it's going to cost me more money to advertise more. And have I got enough employees to actually process the increase in orders, or do I need to take on more staff? Well, I could potentially reduce my costs. The problem is, how will that affect my profit margin? And if I was to reduce my costs, let's say for example to find a cheaper honey supplier, then what's the impact on the quality of my unique selling point? Is that going to damage my brand reputation and image? So this is where we're left with this choice. We could potentially increase sales. Now we can increase sales in a way that means we can sell more items without actually increasing our costs. And this is very clever. This is where an economy of scale comes in. If we can get each customer that we've been selling to so far, rather than to buy one pot of honey, for example, to buy 10 pots of honey, then that means we sell more honey pots to the same number of customers and we increase our sales revenue. And then hence we've got an economy of scale. If we can sell more honey pots in the same transaction to all of our customers, then this means we're going to increase our sales, but we're actually going to reduce our processing and packaging savings. Let's go back to the example to prove this. If, let's say, a customer buys 10 pots in one go, we only have to process the order once, not 10 times. We only pick one order, not 10 orders. We only check the one order of 10 pots rather than doing 10 pots of one, 10 lots of one. We only package the order collectively, so rather than having 10 separate boxes, we have one big box. We only put one brochure in, and we only send it to one location rather than sending it out 10 times. So hopefully you can see that there's massive amounts of savings just by selling in bulk, as it's called. So let's have a look at a simple example of when an economy scale takes place in my honey factory. If we were able to reduce the cost of each honey pot by 20% by having an economy of scale, so the processing costs go down from £2 to £1.60, this is ideal for my business. It means that I can now potentially offer my customers a 10% discount. So notice that the customers think they're getting a discount. They feel happier. They're more willing to purchase from me. However, actually, we've lowered our cost by 20%. And it's only if they buy 100 pots of honey. So let's have a look at the maths. So before an economy of scale, if I sold 100 pots, and we used to make £3, didn't we, on each pot, remember? Go back to our gross profit margin. That means we'd make £300 gross profit. But after an economy of scale, where we've reduced our cost per honey pot to £1.60, that means you make £3.40 gross profit on each honey pot. So £3.40 times 100 means we're going to make £340 per 100 honey pots sold. So you can see, financially, in this case here, it starts to make sense. An economy of scale has actually enabled us to make more profit, even though we've actually lowered our costs. The benefits don't just stop there, though. Because think about this logically. If you have an economy of scale, you become more efficient. So you'll use resources more effectively. You will use the time of your employees more effectively. You will use less raw materials. You're actually selling more stock in one go. So think about honey that's got a sell-by date on it. It means that we're going to sell 100 pots in one go. So we're going to get rid of some of our stock that's been sitting there previously. This means it's going to be less likely to depreciate. And remember, depreciate is when stock loses value. So we're going to benefit straight away from that process there, because we've got less risk of that stock going off and being worth nothing at all. We're going to get increased customer loyalty, because customers are buying in bulk, so they're going to become more loyal to the business. At the same time, we're going to reduce our marketing costs, because we don't need to advertise as much, because we've got the same customers coming back over and over again, hopefully. And we should potentially be able to get an economy of scale from our supplier, because our suppliers who sell the jars to us, for example, they should be able to give us an economy of scale because we're buying more from them. And the process works again. Now, what I've just shown you there is an example of a purchasing economy of scale. Because what we're doing there is the more that somebody buys, the cheaper it gets. Now, buyers like economies of scale because it normally tends to see them getting a discount. Now, what you saw in the previous example was we got an economy of scale because we became more efficient. The organisation was producing more items using the existing amount of resources it got. However, sadly, there does come a limit to these economies of scale. They're not never-ending, because at some point we're going to run out of these resources that we've got in the workplace, and we might have to bring in some new resources, and there's probably going to be a cost to that. Remember, an economy of scale is just basically becoming more efficient at what we do. Now, we'll then get what's called a diseconomy of scale. Now, the diseconomy of scale is when costs start to increase. And that's because we start to run out of some of these resources, which are actually called factors of production. And there's 4 of them. We have land. So let's say, for example, let's keep with our honey factory. If we want to get bigger still, and I am now maximum capacity utilisation, so I am working my bees at 93% up to 95%, so we've just got a little bit of redundancy just in case one of my bee doesn't turn up, and I need to get bigger still, and I want to bring some machinery, for example, I might need to expand the factory because I haven't got any space. Now, to expand the factory means I need to buy some land. Now, to buy some land, there's going to be a cost there, so that's going to increase my cost, so that's not efficient. So that's one of the reasons we run out of. We run out of land. That's one of the factors of production that's going to hinder our economy of scale. Labour. We may need more workers. Maybe I have maximised the potential of my workers at the moment, my employees. So as a result of that, I need to recruit some more. Now, as you're hopefully aware of the recruitment process, it's going to cost money because I have to then identify the job, then I've got to draw up the specification, then I've got to advertise, then I've got to interview, and then I've got to recruit hopefully, and then I might have to give them some training as well. And all that costs money, so that again makes me less efficient. And again, that's a factor of production, so labour is a factor of production. Capital. I may run out of money, my own money. So then I need to go to the bank, for example, to borrow the money. And doing that is going to cost me money because I've got to pay interest on the money that I borrow. Or we could run out of enterprise. Sometimes you run out of the leaders that drive forward a business, the enterprising, the creative people. And you may need to bring them in, so you have to buy them in, headhunt them, which costs money. Or you may just lack them, and then you don't have the vision to drive your business forward. And that is why you tend to get a diseconomy of scale. Now, typical examples of diseconomies of scale, you don't need to worry too much about these, but these should make some sense, hopefully, are operational ones, so where you reach capacity utilisation, so you need to expand your business based on the operational side. You may have a financial diseconomy of scale, where you run out of finances. Or you may have a communication diseconomy of scale, where you get so big that your communication channels become ineffective. Now, one of the other areas of the exam you may get examined on is something called special orders. Now, you're going to be posed with a choice, and this is where the evaluation comes in, and this is where you've got to practice these answers that you keep doing. So keep practicing the idea of thinking about counter-arguments. So let's have a look at this example here, and we'll have a decision-making question. All of my honey pots are hand produced. Each jar is personalised with a name of the bee that has produced it. Now, you should be thinking about that sentence I've just read to you and thinking about straight away things like unique selling point, right, and added value. Those words should be triggered in your mind when you're reading this stuff. Okay, currently we sell each pot for £5. However, a supermarket has now offered us a contract for 10,000 honey pots, but at a price of £3 each honey pot. Now remember, it costs me £2 to make each honey pot, so that means I'm going to make £1 gross profit margin on every honey pot. Should I accept? Well, on a numerical decision, let's have a look at some numbers first. So let's do some calculations and show some application. Currently, obviously £5 we sell each honey pot for. It costs us £2, so £3 gross profit margin times 10,000 means £30,000. So if we were to sell 10,000 honey pots to our existing customers, in theory, we would get £30,000. However, then we've got to consider something such as how long is it going to take us to sell 10,000 honey pots? Is it feasible? Can we do that in a year? Have we got the resources to do that continually to 10,000 separate customers? Proposed option. £3 minus a £2 means £1 gross profit margin. Times 10,000 means we're going to make £10,000. So we're going to make a lot less, 1/3 less in this order. However, we haven't factored in here, for example, what about the economy of scale we will get from our suppliers? How much will it lower our cost by? Because we haven't included that there. We've assumed the costs are going to stay the same at £2, but they probably won't. Also, is this going to benefit us in the long term? Because let's say, for example, we're going to attract more brand reputation and more customer awareness. But we'll look at that in a minute. But from a financial point of view, if you look at those numbers there, you're probably going to say it's a poor decision. But we need to consider other factors, and don't be afraid to make more than one argument. That's what you've got to do, really, to get high-level marks. Show that you've assessed it from all angles. So, we should consider, for example, we're going to clear large amounts of stock in one go. So we lower our depreciation risk. So we're actually getting rid of our stock in bulk, and we're not going to have to worry about sell-by dates and use-by dates. And it creates more space in the factory when we can sell more honey pots elsewhere. We're going to get bigger and increased brand awareness because we're selling in bulk to our large supermarket, so more customers will see our name and hopefully they'll come back to us and buy from us again direct. We're going to make administration and packaging savings because we're going to save money based on the fact that we're sending out one order in a big pallet to our supermarket rather than 10,000 little orders. We're going to benefit from marketing because we're not going to have to do lots and lots of advertising because we're going to get it all in one go. So we are going to see lots of savings across there. However, we've got to also consider things such as, can we deliver the order? So have we got enough resources in the workplace to deliver the order? What's it going to do to our brand image and reputation? Because remember, we are, at the moment, a handmade, personalised product. If we put it into the mass market, going from our niche market that we're in, notice what I'm doing here. I'm using key terms. That's how you get the higher order answers to sound like they come from a business student and not somebody random who's just been picked off the street. So if we were to move to a mass market, are we going to lose our unique selling points? Are we going to lose our differentiation? And by doing that, are we actually devaluing our brand? Will we lose our unique selling point? And of course, the other question is, can our suppliers meet our increased demand? It's okay us accepting this order, but if our suppliers can't deliver to us in time, then maybe that's going to damage our reputation with the supermarket and damage our brand image. We may need to invest in a JIT system. Can they afford to? Have we got the financial resources to invest in it to link to our supermarket, and have our suppliers got the JIT system to actually invest in it to link with us? If we look to a new supplier, do we then damage our reputation, our quality and our loyalty that we've got there? Notice the factors that I use are endless. You can do this all day long. When you're making a decision, you are just trying to make a decision based on hopefully quantitative and quality data. And try and think about it from different aspects of the business. So think across it. Look at their aims, look at their objectives, and then try and relate it back. Make an evaluative answer. So show arguments for and arguments against, but always link it back to the business in question. Okay, that's it. You should now be able to define, assess, and evaluate an economy and diseconomy of scale. You should be able to relate this to knowledge to help make and form evaluative decisions. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember, you can tweet me any areas of business you want me to cover in the future, just like I've done with this video now. And don't forget to check out my website, BeeBusinessBee.co.uk.